Hi. Hello and welcome to Knock Knock Hi with the Glockenfleckens. We are Dr. Glockenflecken and Lady Glockenflecken.
That's right. Will and Kristen Flannery.
Thank you for joining us. And we are talking Airways today.
Yes.
Little baby Airways.
Oh,
little kids.
tiny ones.
It's there's only so much space in the neck,
Mm-hmm.
and there's so much going through the neck.
Yeah.
Literally everything that connects your brain to your body.
Yeah.
It's got to go through the neck. And then you're compressing it into a little tiny kid.
Mm.
And then you got to do surgery on that thing.
Really, it's everything, right? Because you breathe and it goes down into
Ideally.
into your lungs. And I don't know, your blood vessels go through there too. And what you eat goes through there.
Literally.
It's a busy
the
place.
Whole thing. It's a busy place. And I have so much respect for people, for my otolaryngology colleagues, even though I do make fun of them by saying that, obviously, as far as all the senses go, vision is clearly the number one. And then
you have your loyalties.
ENT is, it's just a step below, but that doesn't lessen the impact of what they do. It's amazing. And so we talked to Dr. Tali Lando.
That's right.
Who is a pediatric otolaryngologist. Otorhinolaryngologist or ENT or head and neck surgeon.
That's right.
Whatever terminology you prefer. We did check. It's okay with her. I've always been curious about that. I'm so glad I got a chance to ask, like, are you okay with people calling you an ENT?
Right. Yeah.
It's like, it's like people calling me, I don't know. There's no really good comparison. Eye doctor, but I'm okay with that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's fascinating, and she's got a new book out, Breathless: Surgical Tales from the Brink and Back, and it's out now. And I gotta say, if you're the type of person that likes like stories, harrowing stories about surgeries, about emergencies, about medicine, practicing medicine in this field in particular, like you're going to want to read this book.
Definitely.
Because
and it's so well written too.
Yeah, it's very well written.
It's a fun read. There's some not so fun things happen.
No, I mean,
but...
it's scary stuff because this is like, we were talking Airways.
Yeah.
Like emergencies are like, minutes.
Right.
You have to respond quickly, and it's scary stuff. As opposed to, there's some scary eyeball stuff, but it's a lot of conjunctivitis. That's not that scary. It's just a little gross. But, so there's levels to emergencies here.
Sure.
So, all right, let's get to it. So again, Dr. Tali Lando, pediatric otolaryngologist practicing in New York, working with residents, treating complex airway breathing conditions in children.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff.
Babies even.
So here she is. Hey, Kristen.
Yeah.
Be honest. Do people think about their eyelids?
Honestly, I don't. Okay. Unless something's wrong.
They should, because eyelids are amazing. They distribute your tears. They protect you from incoming objects. They're really important for overall eye health as well.
And we both know they can also be affected by something very common, Demodex mite.
Oh, yeah. Demodex blepharitis.
That's
when
right.
Demodex mites overgrow and they start causing problems like itchy, red, irritated eyelids with crusties.
Mm-hmm.
Collarettes, you got it. And everyone should know that if your eyelids aren't healthy, your eyes won't be either. That's why it's important to see an eye doctor, to get an eyelid check, which is part of a normal eye exam.
And the good news is there's a prescription eye drop treatment available for Demodex blepharitis.
It's great news. To learn more about eyelid health and Demodex blepharitis, visit miteslovelids.com. Again, that's miteslovelids.com to learn more. This ad is brought to you by Tarsus Pharmaceuticals. All right, we are here with Dr. Tali Lando. Dr. Lando, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I understand you came directly from the operating room. You finished up a case, and then now you're here recording with us. So I have a question for you. Are you typically a surgeon that stays on time? Because that's something that surgeons get made fun of a lot.
So I'm very crazy about my time. I really try to stay on time, but more importantly, I will set up every single piece of equipment, push anything down the hallway that is necessary to make efficiency happen. So, because I just want the real time is like with the patient, So I don't know that I'm always on time. Some may criticize my decision-making necessity, which honestly, if you're doing what I do with Peds Airways, you just don't know what you're getting yourself into. But I am very efficient.
Oh, good. Oh, good. So the staff doesn't mind you helping out, grabbing a mop and, doing the turnover.
Do they mind? I don't know that I could be objective about that question.
That's fair enough. All right, let's talk about just about what you do, because I don't know how many pediatric otolaryngologists there are out there, but they're I don't know. You tell me. How many are we talking about?
So
how big is your
just to give a sense of that the numbers are actually pretty small, there's only 34 fellowship spots a year in the country. So obviously
okay.
it depends how many people are staying in practice over time, but it is not when you live in the New York area like I do, there seems to be a lot of us because we're really concentrated. But throughout the country, you could have to travel 2-3 states to actually find a fellowship trained pediatric ENT.
Really?
It's just a numbers game. Yeah.
What is your and by the way, you're okay with the ENT versus because it's so much easier to say. That doesn't
my
bother you?
family still can't say it, so I don't expect anybody else to. So yeah, it's very funny. The only issue I have with ENT is that every time I say I'm a pediatric ENT, then somebody asks me how cool is it to drive an ambulance.
Oh,
and I'm like, I am not an EMT. They're just like, that's amazing. How did you learn how to do that? Or my favorite one with my husband one time is we met somebody from work and he's like, oh, my wife is an ENT. And he's like, a sergeant? Oh, no, he's a surgeon. She's a surgeon. And he was like, a French guy. And he was like, a sergeant in the army? And we're always like, no, a surgeon. So that's why you might have to say otolaryngology, just so they know you're kind of a doctor.
Yeah.
I cannot believe I have not used confusing ENT with EMT in one of my skits yet.
Yeah.
It's
that
all
is a
the
little
time,
surprising.
all the time.
Yeah.
It's my life. It's like I grew up in Allentown, Pennsylvania. So I either get the Billy Joel song sung to me since I was 2 years old or the ambulance comment.
Oh man, and this is perfect because we were just at an event recently, and one of a physician I met was an ENT doctor, and they're like, "When are you going to do more content about us?" And so I'm going to use you as
there's a skit idea.
as some research here. You're
Yeah.
going to help me understand everything that you do in your job.
And by the way, the pit right now must have some type of ER doctor who hates ENTs that is advising them because it's insane. Every time they have an ENT problem, epistaxis, facial fractures, tracheostomy, they say the same thing. Oh, that effing head and neck surgeon wouldn't bother to come down and help us. And all of us are like, we're always in the ER. We are constantly there. Why are we getting so much negative press on that show?
There's so many ways to refer to you. So we've already got otolaryngology, otorhinolaryngology, ENT, head and neck surgeon.
Yeah.
I know, right? Pediatric airway surgeon, and then they don't even know what the hell you're talking about at that point.
What is your path to becoming board certified in your specialty? So you did ENT residency and then pediatric after that? Is that how it goes?
So they've changed this. It used to be 1 year of general surgery, just with everybody else, and then 4 years of ENT head and neck surgery residency. And then I did a 2-year airway reconstructive fellowship at CHOP in Philly. So I did the longest possible route to accomplish your goal. You can do a 1-year pediatric airway fellowship. It's not only airway, it's other things. But there was a 1 year and a 2 year, and I did the 2 years. So really long, 7 years after medical school.
Did you consider just staying in training until you retire? Is that
that's how it felt?
That a possibility?
Yeah, I know. I wanted to be in debt forever,
Right. But despite how subspecialized you are, when you say you're in the ER all the time, so you're taking call that really is a wide variety of things that you're seeing, Right.
So this has to do with like your institution. Ours is actually very unique because most people split it where the peds people just cover the kids or a children's hospital. And I work in a major medical facility, and we made a choice like decades ago before I started that take the hit of covering the whole medical center and you will get less call. So it's a trade-off of the
gotcha.
torture.
Yeah.
It's the torture of what you have to deal with. Like I just came off of call this morning and I spent the whole weekend with like 80-year-olds with neck masses, even though I'm a pediatric ENT. So it's a little bit scary and overwhelming, but it's a choice because you get like I could be on call every third weekend for my whole life, or I could be on call 1 out of 12.
I see. But so you're not just kids. I mean, when you're in an on-call situation, it's
Right.
a wide range, and so it keeps you on your toes in terms of practicing to the level of your training, and
Yeah, we have like a group text of our colleagues, and I sent a picture. Obviously, there was no recognizable elements, but of the tats from like here to here of this horrible neck abscess that I drained this weekend, saying like, this is why I went into pediatric ENT. And some of my colleagues wrote back, when did they start letting kids get tattoos like that? I'm like, I was joking. I was joking. My God, you all know what we do.
That's
Oh man.
funny.
Well,
That must be a little jarring though, going from like kids to then all of a sudden adults. It reminds me of like when we had a newborn and you're just looking at the newborn's face all the time. And then I look at his face and I'm like,
massive.
your face is huge.
Gigantic. Why is
Like
it so
looked
gigantic?
so weird.
Those adult necks must look massive. It's like a brontosaurus, like a dinosaur neck compared to what you're used to seeing.
It's so true because in peds you try to make the prettiest, tiniest little incision. And for the purpose of this horrible infection that I was dealing with, I called our head and neck person for some advice because everybody was gone. And he said, make it as huge as possible. And I felt like an axe murderer because it was like, I can't do it. I can't.
You need the exposure. More exposure.
Yes.
All right, so let's get into, and I'm sure this will probably go into also, some of the things from your book, Breathless: Surgical Tales from the Brink.
Yes.
From the brink and back. Sorry, from the brink and back. But one thing I talk about as an ophthalmologist is when people are always interested, like what are the things you come in, like what are the emergencies? How quickly do these things need to be seen? And one thing I have are called what are called pants patients. That's what I call them. They're basically patients that come to the emergency department that when you hear about it, it forces you as the consultant to put your pants on and come in like immediately, right away.
I thought you were going to say that made you wet your pants. I don't know why that's what came to mind when you said that.
Probably one and the same. I'm sure they're both. Like, you're going to wet your pants, but also like just put them on and then wet them, I guess, or maybe wet them before you put them on. I don't know why you'd pee on your pants before you put them on, but anyway, that doesn't make any sense. Anyway, but I want to know in your specialty, in pediatric ENT, like what are the things, like you hear it, you're like, oh, you're on your way. You're like, I'm already there kind of thing.
So those are like really easy to define in pediatric ENT or ENT in general. Number one, airway foreign body that's doing something bad because you could have a small peanut and they're coughing and maybe they're wheezing, but they're very stable. And you can have a tracheal airway foreign body where no one can save you, meaning no anesthesiologist. And those are the ones, and there are some in my book, obviously, because those are the real disruptors where I got pulled over by the police and I let him like chase me to the hospital rather than stop on the way there.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because
Has that happened to you?
You don't have time. So I got pulled over. I just rolled down the window and I told him, I cannot talk to you. And it was a very scary, but I had to get the information from the person on the ground so I could figure out what to do. And I let the cop be angry. I mean, he didn't have his gun out or anything. I just flashed my badge and didn't even talk to him. But airway foreign bodies can do that and anything airway that's, again, like can't be temporized, or it can be temporized very, very fleetingly. And I have had many of those. And my only rule is that, I know this seems like really simple, but me dying on the way to the hospital is not going to help anyone. So I really try not to, like, seriously, I try not to like speed like crazy or do anything reckless, because it's just more risky than the patient's situation most of the time. So that's number one. And then a massive tonsil bleed, like a scary bleeding out tonsil bleed that no one could get to stop. You're also going to run like hell to get there. So like anything.
How does that happen? How does it? Is this like a post-op bleed kind of thing? You mean?
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And those are very common because I do 400, I do 400 tonsillectomies a year. We cover 12 people in our group. They're not all doing the same volume. And then we cover 10 outside hospitals who might be surgery centers that when there's an emergency, they tell their patients, go to the nearest major medical center, which is us. So the catchment area is so giant that when you're on call, you almost assume you're going to have, it's not always this insane emergency, but it could be really dramatic.
Did you get your tonsils taken out, Kristen?
Not to my knowledge.
No.
I don't know. Are they in there?
I never had this. I remember my sister having that surgery.
Yeah.
What has management changed with tonsils over the past
30 years.
10, 20 years?
The biggest
Are you doing
shift
more or
is,
less of those types of surgeries?
So I think that in the last 15 years, there was a massive shift from it being mainly for infection to being for obstructive sleep apnea in kids. So there was this huge recognition of the degree of interference with their quality of life and function and all this stuff. And so there was this move towards not, like in my mother's day, for example, it was only infection related. And then it was like very much for obstruction, snoring, sleep apnea, and lots of data and studies on how that affects kids, being like basically presenting like ADHD, focusing issues at school, behavioral problems, all this recognition that some of that could relate to sleep. So the type of way you can remove tonsils, you could actually shave them down to minimize them and not fully remove them, which changes some of the post-op recovery and risk of bleeding and etc.
Yeah.
And then the last thing that's relatively recent, which has actually been saving us, is the advent of TXA, IV, and inhaled as a stabilizing kind of way of clotting things off to get from like emergency to stable. And that's been like really life-changing for us because, like I said, some of these went from, okay, there's a finger on the dam, you can get there. There's something holding a clot still on the vessel versus uncontrollable. You're walking into like a murder scene. Like it could be really crazy.
Wow.
And that's administered like right away, by emergency physicians. They use that medication.
But very recently, like we're talking seriously in the last maybe year or two, they've used it for other indications, but that it's become like, okay, you get on the phone, there's a transfer. We have a huge transfer center and you're like, give IV TXA and nebulized TXA because the ambulance could be 2 hours out from your hospital, but I might know about it. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Have you ever been so scared that you wet your pants on the way to see a patient? I don't know.
I haven't, but I've been scared. I've like it takes a lot for me to sweat through things. I'm just not a sweater. So if I sweat through, it's serious. So but no pants sweating, thank God.
Well, so I want to go back to like the foreign body thing that you're talking about. So what do you see most? I mean, is it and do you now like tell people just don't eat grapes anymore? What are the things that you see most often in kids?
Okay, so the one that we're all, trying to educate about, it's like screaming at the windmills type of thing, but it's nuts in young kids. It's pieces of nuts that are like very dangerous because they are just wedged right in the airway. They end up being like the size of the airway because let's say a kid will put it in their mouth, take a bite, but they don't have molars that grind it. And then it can like propel into various parts of the airway. That's a really common one where just like education. And I actually do, where you're like joking a little bit about the grape thing. I just wish nuts didn't exist, like not in ground form, for real. Like you could be like 20 years old and I would love to pre-chew my children's nuts before they eat.
So if we ever see that in a restaurant, someone's pre-chewing, their,
they're
20-year-old
unlikely to choke.
kids.
I mean, at least that, right? Did you ever hear that about remember Alicia Silverstone? There was this whole story that with her son Bear, she was like doing this bird thing where she pre-chewed the food and he ate out of her mouth. And I was like, that's not a bad idea, actually.
You're like reasonable. How do you remove them? Like, so is that right there in the emergency department? You're getting your scope out and just
No, I
finding
mean, that is like the worst case scenario where you have to do it in the ER because you really need some of your optical forceps and a tower, and you really just want to get into the OR. I mean, like immediately. So we have these emergency carts, but for me to do it the only time I've done stuff in the ER, like trauma bay, has been difficult intubations. Not where there's a foreign body, but I have been called there like, no one can intubate this child. You have to come here. And then you're just, praying that you're going to get it,
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
That seems so hard. Intubation. I don't know. You probably do it a bazillion times a day, but to me, a non-doctor.
Well, I was actually going to put you on the spot, Dr. Lando. And so you're, there's a patient, we'll say a kid, and 3 people walk into the room at the same time. This patient needs to be intubated. You got an emergency physician, yourself, and a pediatric anesthesiologist. Who does the intubation?
I mean, I don't want to sound like obnoxious and have too much hubris, but I'm like, get out of the freaking way. It's going to be me for sure. Every single time.
I was hoping you'd put your nickel down. Yeah, that's good.
I am unabashed about this because when they're calling me in, like it often is that someone's made multiple attempts already.
Yeah. Oh man. Wow. Let's take a break, and I've got some more stuff I want to talk to you about. All right, we're back with Dr. Tali Lando. Dr. Lando, let's get into your book because this book is fascinating. I want to hear. So it's Breathless: Surgical Tales from the Brink and Back. First of all, just real quick, what made you want to do this? Because writing a book, I don't know, it seems kind of hard. Seems time consuming.
So one of the things I always tell. I know. One of the things I always tell people when they ask me about this is I just want to explain that I've been a writer my whole life. So this is my number one passion before I found medicine. It wasn't the other way around, like, oh, you've had this interesting career, like, hey, write about it or get a ghostwriter. So writing is something I've really, used as an outlet and prided myself on. And I wrote another book. That's why this book is, it's a play on that, because my first book was called Hell and Back, Doctor, Mother, Patient, and Dragon Slayer. And that book was not the book I wanted to write. That was the book that I had to write because when I was 36, I was diagnosed with stage 3C breast cancer right after I had my youngest daughter, and she was in the NICU. And so, but still, that experience, kind of pushed me to have this fodder for writing a book. And I wrote that book because that's how life happened. But my dream was to live another 10 years, which I, at the time, was skeptical of. Thank God I am still here. And this was the book I wanted to write. The book of all the life lessons, all the drama, all the biggest arcs, the stories that I repeat to everybody around me, to my residents, and that are, make you cry. Some of them will you literally need an entire box of tissues. They will make you cry. And I'm not trying to do that purposely, but there were lessons in it. And some of them will make you laugh. One of them is called The Cocaine Condom, for example. That is a true story.
You have to tell us about that.
Right. Okay. So, okay.
You can't just throw a cocaine condom and be like, "Oh, I just have a story about it. We'll tell you later."
So, okay. So our medical center is on a property that includes a county jail. And also, where I am in New York, it's not super upstate, but upstate of us are all the major penitentiaries. So we get a lot of inmates funneled to our hospital. I know it's so weird because, again, people are like, don't you just do tubes and tonsils? Why are you talking about this? But it is our patient population on the nights and weekends. And so this guy came in and basically he had a visitor in the jail. And I assume he was giving him a package to swallow that he was supposed to be able to expel later on at his convenience. It is unclear if it was to distribute or for personal use. However, it got stuck, and it got stuck high enough that it is my domain. So up here, even though it's the esophagus, we actually deal with the upper esophagus instead of GI necessarily.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
If it's wedged really high, their instruments are kind of like flimsy. So that is how I ended up dealing with this, prisoner who comes in handcuffed to the bed with the prison guard, like in the OR, to do this case at 3:00 in the morning on a Saturday night.
Wow.
And it was like dramatic.
Did you know what it was like? Going into it, like, because you probably don't want to break that thing open.
So very good point. Okay, so one thing I will say about the book is I obviously had to make all of these stories HIPAA compliant.
Sure.
Therefore, I changed massive details, made them amalgams, forget about like names, backgrounds, ethnicity. One of the elements I had to change was the substance because I just felt like that was another de-identifier. So, yes, I did know because just like you said, I had to know what to do if I had to break the bag in any way to get it out, which I did, and you can read about it. And you have to know what the impact is going to be of that substance. And of course, you might not know, but in this case, I actually did know in advance.
Did know. Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize you have a particular domain. So is that true? Is it true with the airway as well? Like if you get like low enough and it becomes like a pulmonologist that kind of takes over. Like what's the cutoff?
Totally. We often
are there turf
like,
wars?
So it's funny. With airway foreign bodies, there's actually airway foreign body call, and it rotates between like for the kids, between pediatric surgery and peds ENT, which we take. We are not happy about this. We think we should do all the airway foreign bodies because it's like we're experts, but they need it for their fellowship training. So we split it. And when we go in, we're like, everyone out of the room, like, we don't need anybody. But when the peds surgeons go in, they bring the pulmonologist first to like bird dog what's going on. And then they do their thing if there's something really stuck in there. So there's so much overlap. And also whether there's like little pieces that are sometimes like with the nuts, it's really crazy. You could have tons of teeny weeny pieces that are beyond the reach of our instruments. And then you do need interventional pulmonology with all their like crazy, they have something called cryo, which can stick, it freezes to the like little pieces and can extract it when we can't reach it. And it's like really necessary sometimes.
That's insane.
I know.
It's wild.
But do you have, but you're taking it because you have residents and fellows, I assume, right? That work with
We
you?
have no fellows, we have residents. We've never had a fellowship because like our resident, obviously then you're kind of taking cases away from the fellows and you have to set up a fellowship.
You mentioned that, a lot of the information, the stories, things from your book are, they're helping residents or talking about your experience, either as a resident, right, or just educating.
Yeah, what I did is I finally wrote the book when I figured out what would be a structure that was really conducive to what I wanted to convey. And with everything in life, I'm sure like when you guys started your podcast, you have these eureka moments. And you're like, hey, this is the format. Like, this is going to work. And I thought about my book for years. I mean, really years. And first I had to figure out that HIPAA piece. How can I tell the truth, the kernel of the truth, and convey the story, but then take all the details out? It's a real challenge.
Yeah.
So I kind of figured that out. At least I think I did. I hope. I haven't been sued yet. Um, and um, and then the second one was, what's the structure? And so I figured out in the shower, where all great moments of thought
Sure.
happen. Especially if you have kids and it's like your only solace. So I figured
Sometimes.
out that exactly. Right. I have 3 daughters, so they're like in and out of the bathroom. Like they couldn't care less if I'm, totally like taking a shower. They're like, whatever. I
This
need,
is our
I need
bathroom
your
too. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, what
right.
do you don't have your
They're
own.
like, but I need eye makeup remover. I'm like, right now you need the eye makeup remover? Like, can't I get a
Yeah.
moment privacy? So I figured out that I wanted to structure it like how the OR is structured. And so meaning timeout is like where you give a quick backstory. So that would be like my whole backstory. Then the crux of each story, like, the actual real-time events. And then debrief, which is supposed to be this quick review. How did everything go? Anything you want to change? In the OR, if it's a straightforward case, that's like a second long. And then, but in the book, I use the debrief as all the lessons that, one-liners, like something, let's say, stay vigilant, never let your guard down. Don't think everything's over until the patient is out of the room and safe, or just more broadly that sometimes it's going to come down to you and only you. And you don't have to be a resident. That's just life. And so I use the debrief as the way to convey the lessons from each case. And these cases are very readable. They're more like medical drama because I really wanted it to appeal to a very wide audience. So I translate all the medical terminology, and I was always trying to skirt that line between not talking down to anyone, but also not assuming people have a body of knowledge. And then
Yeah.
the last section for each chapter is how it spilled over to my home life. So, it's called the at-home section, which obviously does not have anything to do with the surgery, the surgery format, but that was like the hardest part to write because each story had like a really big aftermath in my psyche and my emotional well-being and how it impacted my family, because obviously most of these cases were very disruptive and either
Sure.
in the moment or really like could have had 10 different trips to the OR or weeks of trying to figure out what was wrong with this kid or how to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a part of really being a physician, but certainly being a surgeon, that people don't. It's hard for people to wrap their heads around. Is you know you have terrible things that happen sometimes to your patients, and then you can't just kind of leave that at work, and so you're gonna in some way take it home with you, and going through residency, Kristen saw that with, ophthalmology and, and I would just be irritable or I'd be,
And that's not even life and death. I mean, it's still important. It's vision, but
yeah,
like
right. But I mean, still, if
even
you have a
yeah.
patient that goes blind or has a
Right.
post-op infection, they lose their vision or, whatever it may be. And every specialty has their own thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard, like to even recognize that that's really what's happening beneath the kind of the anger or the arguments, it's like,
Right.
maybe you're better at, like, recognizing that than I was or still am.
No, I mean, I actually spend a lot of time talking about that in the book in various ways because I'm terrible at compartmentalizing. I know that about myself, actually. And I think some doctors, especially I've spoken to other pediatric surgeons specifically, they super compartmentalize. But I wanted to be accessible. So you can't both be accessible where you're going to pick up the phone even if you're not on call. Obviously not if I'm not in the state or the country. I that is
Right.
is like my line in the sand, but I do always tell them like if I am in town and there's an airway issue, call me. I might not
Yeah.
be able to come running. And I am the person that lives the closest of everybody in my group. So I do end up being that go-to person. And I am very irritable. Like you mentioned irritability, like even this weekend being on call, I am 100% 15 years down the road 10 times more irritable when I am on call because of just the not knowing and how it could, you might sit down and you have to get right back up again. You might think you're about to go home. I've made thousands of promises that I never keep because I say I'm leaving the hospital and then I don't. And it's really funny. I used to get angry that my husband never worried that I was like dead in a ditch somewhere. If I said I'll be home in 10 minutes and then I just never showed up.
We
And I'm
don't
like,
believe you people. We know that's
right,
not true.
exactly. And he's like, I said, Alex, like, don't you love me? What if something had happened to me? And he's like, I just assume you're still in the hospital. Why would I think that you were like in a car accident when I know you're probably just still in the OR?
I mean, surgeons don't have the best ability to estimate time and how long things will take. I mean, if we're being honest, 10 minutes could easily be 2 hours.
But this compartmentalization thing, this is one of my soapboxes, which is like, that's like
be doing that.
the only thing they teach you to do, barely even teach you. They just tell you should, kind of, I assume.
Right.
But that is just emotional suppression that's very unhealthy and it's not helpful. And what they should be teaching you is emotion regulation, which is accepting the fact that these things have happened and processing the emotions that come along with that so that you can move along, instead of just like shoving everything down in there until it explodes.
But I can ignore it down there. It's so far down there. You do have a point, though, I mean...
Well, just physiologically, it's not healthy. Yeah. Like, there's research, and regulation is much healthier physically, but obviously also psychologically.
Yeah.
But how do you accomplish that? I like the concept of it, but you need someone to process it with you and your significant other, even if like my significant other's completely not in medicine. And it could go either way. You could either have two doctors and then it's like, there has to be something beyond the medical when you get home. And if you have someone who's not in medicine, even if I'm sure by now, like you, just like my husband, the terminology, you get the gist of everything we're saying, but but he's like, doesn't want to hear about it all the time. You also have your self-preservation and there's enough is enough. So unless you have
I think it should be part of the that's a great idea too, but I think it should be part of like medical education and training and just part of the job, right? That there's a process that you go through, like an emotional debriefing for yourself.
I would say that kind of occurs in like the shared commiseration and
it's all very like informal right now, but I wish it were like
more formalized, that kind of like
inserted intentionally and systematically in evidence-based ways, right? To help physicians deal with because think about it, any other person seeing the things that you all see every single day, they would be traumatized, right? But you guys become just so used to pieces of it, but then there's still things that would traumatize anybody, even if you are used to it, and they just leave you to deal with that yourself. Like they give you no tools. It's a soapbox. I don't know.
It's a good point. Fortunately, like enough terrible things happen in residency that we have to like lean on each other to like.
Then what about when you're not in residency anymore?
Well,
you're all alone.
Well, that's hopefully...
So it's not true. You have to like the way that I deal with it, because again, if you read the book, and that's just a smattering of the patients that I really, singled out, but there's deep loss and it's kids most of the time. And the fact is I still completely lean on my colleagues and people from residency, fellowship. You have to arm yourself if you're dealing with those type of things with people that you are still reaching out to. So it's not over in residency. It's just you pick, I have one colleague. She is 100% my touchstone for those things. And she knows it. I talk about her. Her name's Leanne DeSere. She was my attending when I was a resident, but then I joined her practice, and she knows she's that person for me for processing, and I am for her too. And then there's people beyond that, because you cannot get up, and half the time you go through that, and the next day I might have 30 patients that need that same surgery, that just maybe I lost somebody. I'm not saying that happens often, but
Right.
you right away are like pushed to redo or talk about the risks and benefits, where the 1% is something catastrophic, but it just happened to you.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And then you just go on to the next thing,
And
right?
but they don't
Yeah.
put anything in place to help you all,
Uh,
be able to deal with that. It's
I do. I mean, that historically, yes, you're correct. I do think it's becoming more recognized.
yeah,
Like
slowly.
slowly, I think we're getting there and understanding some of the forces they're driving the kind of mental health crisis for
Right.
physicians.
Right.
But you
Right.
make a great point, Dr. Lando, about the bonds that you make in residency. They're like no other bond that you or just early in your career. And I still have my co-residents that I'll still reach out to, and
Mhm.
just if I just have like a really shitty day and I'm like, this happened, this sucked, and I'm not asking for any specific advice, but I know that they're going to completely understand because they've been in that situation before, right? And uh, if there's a piece of advice that I have for like residents is like you hold on to those people,
Oh
because
yeah. Oh yeah.
you're gonna
100%. I
need
mean,
them.
me and my closest friend from residency, we only had 3 people per year, but she and my closest friend from the internship, we're doing like a yearly girls trip. We just came back actually from a trip together, because that is something that we like have held on to all these years. And that just being understood,
Yeah,
just like anything you do, finding that group that you don't have to give any context. It's so
Yeah.
valuable, and that I think that is the best. And you're right that, the hospitals really still are not good, because unfortunately there's still a lot of um, the malpractice end of it. Like, they very quickly plug you in with the lawyer and the
Right.
other stuff, but not as fast with the mental health. They might give you like a hotline or something, but
right.
Right.
No, you're right. It's mostly like, oh, we gotta make sure everyone's asses are covered
risk
here. Just
Mhm.
management, risk
it's risk
management. You're
Yeah.
talking
management.
to 25 seconds later.
Yep.
Right. It's like what are the priorities here? And yeah, I mean that's an indictment just of our kind of the litigious like country that we're in and the medical system and how it's developed. But now we're getting into the, a bigger conversation
Yeah.
that I don't think we need to go into. But I as we wrap up here, I just want to thank you for kind of putting those stories out there and talking about these types of things because I think it's important, for the next generation of physicians that come up and they need to have this type of direction and advice on like how to sustain a career in medicine, you know going through things that you've gone through and I've gone through, health issues as well. Like, so, talking about, your cancer diagnosis, like that's so important.
I've been out there. I know you had a personal, I mean, because I've read about you as well, and that
Yeah.
Kristen like saved your life, and that I mean, that petrifying, almost meeting death and coming back from that, and how you redefine yourself, or how you put that into your ethos. And I've 100% dealt with that, and I continue to deal with it. And I don't have some easy answer. I also had 3 daughters in the midst of this, but I think it's trying to create even what we're doing right now. I just want to thank you, because these are some of the ways that I have found to combat my own burnout, because I love what I do.
Mhm.
I still feel truly grateful that people entrust me with their tiny little babies to operate on them. It's an honor. it doesn't mean I don't get grumpy and I'm not tired and it wears me down.
You're still a human.
I am a human, and I'm not even
and you
like
can only,
the top.
You can only, and you can only handle so many nosebleeds. Like, I mean, it's before you start going crazy, right? So,
Right. But this is the way that some of the ways I've found to like get my adrenaline surging again is actually these conversations, like being able to talk about it, being able to joke about it, be serious about it, do podcasts where I actually allow myself to end my surgery day a little bit early and do something that gets me going. And that's how I've sustained my enthusiasm.
Are you going back to the OR after this? Are you?
I have to round with the residents and go to the ICU and stuff like that, but I am not going back to the OR because they don't let you take a break and then go back. That is unacceptable.
Only the anesthesiologist can do that. You can't.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the only,
well, I loved the book. It's no surprise that you were a writer first because I've been attached to medicine for...
Here it is. The folks watching on YouTube.
Gosh, I don't know, 25 years. And, it wasn't ever anything that I am particularly interested in personally. But this does read like almost like a suspense or a thriller or something almost, it is very similar to how it feels to watch like a medical drama on TV. The writing is really good. And I love the structure too, how you did that. And it kind of gives us a sense outside of medicine of what it's like in there. Which at least those of us who are married to you all, I know, appreciate, and probably some others as well. So I think it's a great book.
And it's going to be released on Audible too, right? You just did the narration.
It's just today. I uploaded it's very complex. They make it like really like you have to win like a Nobel Prize to be able to do this ACX formatting, and it just released to the world. Like it's out in the wild as of like 3 hours ago. So now it's available on Audible, and then it's going to be like on all the other mediums within the next couple of days. And this is very exciting because it's the stories in my own voice, which I want the first person to tell me that they loved it because no one in my family was willing to listen to me like reading my book. And not my husband, not my kids are like, we hear your voice all the time. Please stop that recording. So like I need some external validation is my point.
Yeah.
Let's give it folks, go check out the Audible and tell Dr. Lando how amazing her voice is.
Yay!
So again, the book is Breathless: Surgical Tales from the Brink and Back. It's out on Amazon, and the audio book is out as well. And people can find you, Dr. Tali Lando, on all the social media. You got Instagram.
I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
If you can't find me, that is on you.
That's what I tell people about Glockenflecken too, but usually it's just people can't spell it.
I mean, you made it impossible to know how to spell it, so that's on
make
you.
It easy
actually,
on myself.
It is 100%.
Nobody to blame for myself. All right, well, thank you for taking time out of your busy day. Go round, and I don't have to tell you to keep rounds short. You're a surgeon. It goes pretty quick. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really, really had fun.
Airway stuff scares me.
Yeah.
That's like emergency of emergencies.
Super. I mean, I have had to deal with an airway emergency.
Like
in our child.
Of course I do.
Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, we got to go in there. Something sound.
Yeah, you were the one that was
right.
pushing for it. Yeah.
She had the cord wrapped around her neck as a baby.
Oh gosh, yeah. So those are different incidents.
Which one are you talking about?
I'm talking about when she got her braces off and they were taking the expander out, and part of it popped off and just went straight down her airway, and then she managed to cough it up, but then accidentally swallowed it. So it was just every part of the throat that day.
And it's, I have pants patients. Like, I honestly, she has no pants patients.
Like she's going in even if she doesn't have pants on.
Yeah, it's
you just go.
More of an
pajama patient.
Literally, someone's gonna die in
minutes,
if we don't figure them out. So So impressed. Let us know what you thought of the episode. You can email us, knockknockhi@human-content.com. Visit us and our Human Content Podcast family over on Instagram and TikTok @Human Content Pods to see all the offerings. Thanks to all the listeners leaving feedback and reviews. If you subscribe and comment on your favorite podcasting app or on YouTube @GlockenFleckens, that's where you'll find us. We can give you a shout out, like @Captain Terrific on YouTube said, saw a title, never clicked faster in my life, about our discussion with our GI psychiatrist.
Oh, yes.
Dr. Brandon.
Yes. That one was fascinating.
Absolutely. Aside from celiac disease, sometimes manifesting in psychosis, I didn't even know this connection existed. That's why we wanted to talk to her. Yeah. That's fascinating. Full video episodes are up every week on our YouTube channel @GlockenFleckens. We also have a Patreon, lots of cool perks, bonus episodes, hang out with other members of the community, early ad-free episode access to interactive Q&A live stream events, patreon.com/GlockenFlecken, or go to glockenflecken.com. Let's shout out the Jonathans, shall we?
Let's do.
The Jonathans: Lucia C., Edward K., Marion W., Mr. Granddaddy, Caitlin C., Brown L., MP Cole, Tracy B., Mary H., Keith G., Parker Muhammad L., David H., Kaylee A., Gabe, Gary M., Eric B., Marlene S., Scott M., Kelsey M., Dr. Hoover, Sean M., Ryan N., Jess K., Hawkeye MD, Bubbly Saw, and the one and only
Shawnee D.
Patreon roulette time. Random shout out to somebody on the emergency medicine tier. Blake B., thank you for being a patron, Blake. And thank you all for your listening. We're your hosts, Will and Kristen Flannery, also known as the Glockenfleckens. Executive producers are Will Flannery, Kristen Flannery, Aaron Corney, Rob Goldman, and Shanti Burke. Editor and engineer Jason Portiz. Our music is by Omer Ben Fade. To learn about Knock-Knock-Hi's program disclaimer, ethics, policy, submission, verification, and licensing terms, ever release terms, glockenflecken.com. Or reach out to us, knockknockhi @human-content.com with questions, concerns, or fun medical puns. Knock-Knock-Hi is a human content production.
Knock, knock. Goodbye.